But in store at all.
Yeah, that's what, he was saying that they actually put, like, pull out the aisle,
You guys
the
are
paper
right, right
products
now.
aisle or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean,
That's all.
last night they beat that. You went to that same.
Almost be worth doing. Just
That'd be funny, right?
rubber gloves and how it goes.
Lions Club.
No, it's unbelievable.
Lions Club. I don't know. What I want to eat. It's for the convention. No, this is some of it.
Very done.
There it is.
You see, you had to handle it anyway.
Yeah.
You could have plugged it.
Thanks, Mike.
Hi. We're live right now, so you might want to reiterate it a few times in case new viewers come in and out. I just posted a message. I'm viewing the comments live since folks might want to participate but didn't want to come to tonight's meeting.
Oh, okay.
So I can see comments that are posted in here, so I'll try to share them with you as they're relevant.
Okay, no, perfect. All right, I've got 5:00. Call the meeting to order today, Monday, March 16th, 2020. Roll call is Selectman Howdy Goodwin, Mike Mansalili, Mackenzie Jewett, Kevin Buck, myself, Jamie Thurlow, and Town Manager Chris Saunders. Adoption of agenda. We have another sheet here that's in our packet Chris has prepared for us to add on to our agenda to try to get as many things done tonight as we can, so we don't have to meet as many times this month. The first thing is the COVID-19 update. Second thing is the FY21 budget. Third thing is a portable toilet bid. Fourth is coastal community grant. And the fifth one is the wharf and facilities ordinance. So try to get everything on tonight and we won't have to for another week or two, or a couple weeks, I should say. Approval of minutes.
Oh, sorry, Jamie, can I just jump in?
Yes.
So for that agenda addition, the second item on my addendum, the FY21 budget, you already have that on your agenda for tonight.
Mhm.
So that doesn't need it, that's not changing the order, but there is just more information in there.
Mhm.
And I think having a motion to accept those additions to the agenda, since they are so substantial, would be helpful.
Okay.
I move to accept the additional items to tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to add the additional items to our agenda this evening as prepared by Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Approval of minutes. We have the minutes from Monday, March 9th, 2020.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of March 9th, 2020.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from Monday, March 9th, 2020. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, approval of warrants. Warrant list here.
I'll just write it down.
We have warrant 93 for $1,597.37, 94 for $40, 94,
Mistake,
Yeah,
it's 95.
95, yeah. 95 for $52,622.03, and warrant 96 for $9,476.56.
I'll make a motion to approve warrants 93, 95, and 96.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve warrants 93, 95, and 96. Any discussion? All those in favor?
I make a motion to approve warrant 94.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve warrant 94. Any discussion? All those in favor?
I abstain.
All right. Regular business. We have Thurston's liquor license application. It's up for renewal again this year. I think everything's exactly the same, isn't it, Chris? As it always is, nothing new.
No complaints, no drama.
No public hearings needed because it's a renewal, correct?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the application of Thurston's Lobster Pound located at 9 Thurston Road for a state on-premise restaurant liquor license.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the application of Thurston's Lobster Pound located at 9 Thurston Road for a state on premises restaurant liquor license. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, next is the fireworks ordinance. Were there any changes made to this, Chris, after we discussed it at the
Nope.
last meeting? Okay, Keith,
So I had asked, I couldn't make it last week because parent-teacher conference is at school, but I understand you want to make changes to it. Basically, in my opinion, last year, there was only one person that came in for a permit, and someone wasn't available. And so there was zero permits that ever been issued. And then currently isn't really a clear system on issuing them and notifications of them. But with that said, I think I talked to Pat Kane a few days ago, we had over 12 incidences of people calling and reporting fireworks to them. And in most situations, they had no clear way of knowing whether they had a legitimate permit or not. And I just think that with short staffing of the fire department and everything else, and us being the only town that allows them, that I would rather move to amending current plan to maybe excluding the permit system altogether and just allowing them to have them on the dates around around 4th of July and around Christmas that the state currently allows. And then the rest of the year they're prohibited. Especially after talking to Pat Kane the other day, he's saying that they're gonna shoot them off around the 4th of July, and they're gonna shoot them off around New Year's, so you're just gonna be chasing them around, but I understand it's probably too late to draft a new ordinance for this year, for this town meeting, but I don't, but I guess if the selectmen weren't in favor of that, probably solicit the, petitions on the signatures to get put on for the next general election. So that was my 2 cents of it.
what do you guys?
The only thing I can think of, Keith, is, the permit system's pretty new. I mean, it's only been since last May, it's less than a year. And I'm just curious, if would it help if it's working?
I don't see that, I don't believe that there's a need for it, because I mean, if one person came in
Yeah.
within the last month for a birthday party to ask for it, I don't know. Either way, I'd be pretty adamant in saying that we're the only ones on the island that allow them. Southwest Harbor kind of turns, and most of them kind of turn a blind eye on the 4th of July because they're shooting them off in the harbor and from everybody else's town dogs. But just given the fact that we don't have 30 people on the department anymore, and we've only had to respond to one fireworks type fire incident in Menard since they've come. But I think we've had some problem areas down on the Mitchell Cove Marsh with the residents there with, it's all grass fields and marsh, and he lights them off every single night. And his neighbors are calling. I just think, I think we need, I don't know, that's just my opinion, that I don't think we can regulate them around 4th of July. We can't just sit in our cars and listen for them, chase them around. But I think people will come from other communities to ours to shoot them off because I don't know where to go with it.
You know, would it help with just trying to think of how we could set up the permit system? That's the only trouble with not having a, police force in town, because if it was, at least if you had a police department, you could say, you could go there, pick up your permit, and they would know that you had the permit out, so they know who does and who hasn't. But as far as if they stop in and get it from Katie, then how are the sheriffs gonna know who has one and who doesn't?
We'll leave it, as part of the procedure for when we do take one out, is that we let Hancock County Sheriff's Office know.
Okay. So you do let them know when,
Doesn't happen, but
Do you think it's that maybe people don't know they're supposed to take out a permit?
I don't think people plan ahead. I think they're
Yeah.
gonna shoot them off.
Yeah.
They just shoot them off.
Mhm.
But,
And that's gonna happen whether there's a permit situation in place anyways.
right,
Yeah, I think the other towns have been having the same problems. I think there's a lot of confusion where it's legal state-wise, and each individual towns get their own ordinance. But I honestly don't have a problem dumping the permit and just doing it 4th of July and New
Just
Year's
those
also.
dates.
I mean, it doesn't seem unreasonable.
I don't think we're gonna curb it 100%, but
No,
the
I'm
idea
sure.
is that if we can streamline it, so these are the only dates, other than that. I mean, I honestly think it'd be best to ban them all together, but I don't think it's practical. We can't-
It wasn't.
Then
before
that
the
would be
state allowed it.
enforceable.
Yeah,
You never be able to.
yeah.
That's the only thing about the permitting I was wondering is, if the few times we getting any money out of it? Nothing. It'd be one thing if we were getting something out of it.
And if someone's gonna do a wedding or a big function, then they go to the state and they apply for a commercial permit, and it has to be done by a commercial licensed person. It's not preventing, bicentennial celebrations and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know.
as far as just a note on timeline, I expect that if you were to request this change, it would not be hard for me to get this done by your March 30th meeting, for example. And I would ask you to rescind your previous motion because you already have ordered the previous version of the ordinance to be put on the warrant. But you can do that. Warrant's not finalized yet.
Did we put this on the town ballot when, last year, year before?
Last year.
Last year,
time.
yep. And everybody voted in favor if they wanted to.
Well, it was a secret ballot.
Yeah.
I don't think there's that.
It was not
Majority.
Yeah, majority was to
Yeah.
allow. Yeah. I know. If we did it, I would want to put it on, obviously, put it on ballot again.
A secret ballot.
I would think,
Aye.
if we wanted to change, and let the townspeople decide.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
That's the easiest way.
So it would be, let's just say, what, does this sound good? July 2nd through the 6th or something like that? Did it would be allowed?
You already have dates in your ordinance, and it sounds like Keith, you're okay with those dates that are in here.
That's what the state has picked as the 3 days,
Yep.
so, I mean,
This is your minimum,
I
basically.
think we should kind of stick with what the state says, and we say, so there isn't something.
Okay, well, if I make a motion to amend the fireworks ordinance to eliminate the permitting process and make fireworks legal in the town of Tremont only on the specified dates currently specified. How's that sound?
Okay.
Been moved and seconded to amend the fireworks ordinance and to remove the permitting requirement and to make it legal to use fireworks only on the days as listed in the ordinance. Sound good, Kim?
Okay.
Is there any discussion? Or do you also want us to say in the same motion that we would like this placed as a,
No, I think you'll want to look at the draft that they come up with.
okay,
Before you do that.
any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. FY 21 budget. Chris.
Yeah.
It's you.
So, in your packet, there are a couple items. Probably the most helpful one for you to look at is this one pager that has the changes that you requested at your last meeting. The net effect of those changes was to add $5,000 to the municipal property tax rate. The changes that you made were on the solar array reserve and the public safety reserve were a wash, so those had no effect. There's a couple items that I think you'll want to talk about. The first one is fairly minor, so maybe I'll get that out of the way now. I do have a formal request that was a handout 3 for tonight's meeting from Mike Hayes. He was planning to attend tonight, but under current circumstances is not here, obviously. He's recommending for a warrant article increasing the compensation for select board. This has come up at the last 2 town meetings. Currently, the chair is paid $50 per meeting. Each member is paid $45 per meeting. If you wanted, you could ask me to increase it in the budget, and it would also increase on the warrant. You want to talk about that now before I move on?
How do we handle that?
You just make a motion. You decide how much you want to pay the chair and the members.
Did
Make
he give you a number?
He did not.
I thought we weren't allowed to set that ourselves.
It's set by town meeting ultimately,
Oh, I see.
but I need you.
So we can
you
put the,
can
we can
tell
put the
me
article on there.
what the article is on there, yeah. So they could say no.
Right.
What is it now, 50 and 45?
Correct.
You just don't want us to be setting our own.
Right,
It
and
would feel better if someone else was doing
that's
it,
what
but
I
I don't
was-
know how else to do it.
It's your warrant for town
And
meeting.
it's never been increased?
It has been increased.
How long ago?
I believe the last time it was increased was in the neighborhood of 6 to 10 years ago, somewhere in that range.
What would 20% do?
20% of $50 is $10, so 60 and 55, give or take. 20% increase.
Well, I mean, it's not that much money.
We're the lowest paid ones on the
We're
island.
the lowest paid.
Here,
Chris, Chris,
That's about 1.5%.
Chris, we're the lowest paid ones on the island.
I have not done an audit of the other towns on the island.
We also have a cap of 26 meetings per year.
Correct, yeah. So even if you meet more than that, you don't get paid.
Do we meet more than that?
Yes.
We do, right?
You're the
I mean, if
The
they're all.
schedule that I bring you has 26 meetings on it, but usually something happens.
We usually have 1 meeting.
Exactly.
We just 3 or 4.
Right, and that doesn't also include coming in and signing warrants in the middle of the week, or phone calls, or emails, or you come in, or the chairman comes in and out of here way more than the rest of us for meetings and things like that, so.
I mean, I'm not greedy, but I think we can ask for whatever we want. It's up to the townspeople if they want to give it to us or not. You know? If they don't, they don't.
Are in it for the money,
Right,
that's for
right.
sure.
Right,
So I don't-
right,
I don't-
right.
I don't know about-
We're not gonna get rich.
That's not what I'm saying, but you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I mean, we could propose anything, but
Mhm.
if we don't get it, we're not any worse than we are now.
So what if we do 60 and 55, or 65 and 60? And we give no recommendation, we can come up with it, but we can say this, or is that done?
No, you can do it.
Well, clearly we have a recommendation, but.
65 and 60 sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
What do you think, Ellie?
Whatever you guys say.
I know, I don't.
We're still
I
getting,
don't-
we're
I
still
don't
getting
like
about
to
10
be
bucks
the-
an hour, so.
I don't like to be the one sent.
No.
Yeah, that's
I don't
hard, that's
either.
and I wish Mike had have said, I recommend this.
Well, the other argument about all that is we get the pay up there a little more reasonable, might get more people interested in doing it.
Sure.
because We don't normally get a lot of people willing to do this.
Same issue with the planning board in the past. I mean, this time we've had a few more applicants, but there's been a lot of times where we haven't had hardly any, so. I'll make a motion to increase the pay for the chairman to $65 per meeting and the rest of the select board at $60 per meeting to be put on the, as a warrant article.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to increase the selectmen's pay to $65, you said, for
For
a chairman, and $60 for the rest of the board members to be put on a warrant article with no recommendation, would you
With no
like, Mike?
recommendation,
With
sure.
no recommendation from the select board. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
I'm sure that's gonna draw a lot more applicants, but
Yeah.
And if that
Looks like
doesn't
they're lining
pass,
up
it
out
goes
there.
back to what it is, right?
No, it would, there could be a discussion on the floor.
Mhm.
And something's going to pass. I mean, if nothing passes, then you're paid zero.
You're gonna find out who your friends are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, the general rule on town meeting warrant articles is you can decrease it, but you can't increase it. And so if somebody, if that wasn't gonna fly, someone could ask, what was it last time? Let's keep it at that.
All right, so
So that was your first item on there. The next one is ultimately, what's the road plan? Currently, your road improvement program reserve with all of the transfers that you've already budgeted is up to $212,000, but $212,000. And when I say currently, I mean in the FY21 budget, that is what we're expecting it to be, not today. So based on the conversation that you had last time, and based on my conversations with, or my research and on what has been done in the past for road projects, $212,000 is not enough for full road reconstruction. I've said all along, $300,000 is my personal goal, and you can choose to do what you want with that. So you're about $88,000 shy of that $300,000 goal. Unfortunately, you are also hemmed in by the LD1 tax cap. I think I explained this at the last meeting, but just to reiterate, you can only increase property taxes by so much every year. And if you do exceed that cap, then town meeting has to approve an article for that. That's always been an article on the warrant. It is always passed. So it may very well be no issue, but I wanted you to be going to it with full awareness that that is a potential sticking point with this. And so that you're $52,000 under that cap, so you could increase it by, let's say, $51,000. And you'd still be shy of the $300,000, but you'd be a lot closer. I'll be honest and say that I am expecting another year with a decent surplus. We've had some big, well, we had one property tax that was adjusted upwards because somebody took a large piece of property out of tree growth. And that's a $75,000 windfall for the town that will be coming in next. I expect it to hit the town's books by June 30th. And so I do expect you will be able to encumber funds, but typically that happens in December, January. And if you want to get the ball rolling on road improvements over the summer, that's too late for that budget.
So if we did, like I was thinking, if we did 45,000, you get 257. I mean, we're in hope that we can do it for basically 260.
Yep. And I've heard people say if you chose, for example, Hodgson Road, it's a lot shorter than Dow Point Road, and so that might be enough for that road.
And they might, if we, like we said, if we work with the engineer as well too, throughout the whole process and don't do things like the curbing and stuff
That's
like
what I
that.
was.
If we can limit back.
Instead of a complete redesign, maybe just a, grind up, repave, reditch, stabilize.
I think you want to do the base of the road. Make sure you got a good base.
The
on it.
base,
Yeah, you want to make sure that,
yeah, I think anything we do, we have to make it as permanent as possible.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
if we can do that without, it's got a good enough base, I think that's fine. I think you can make sure we
depends
do.
on how much,
Just
it
knows.
depends on, I guess, how much of it they want us to take out.
It's- Once the engineer is in there.
I guess once they get SW Cole in there, then they,
Uh,
their
I
samples.
know there's some restrictions on moving funds from one budget item to another, but it looks like the winter road budget is going to be spent significantly less than it was budgeted for. Is that possible to move that money to summer roads?
Yes,
Okay, so
Yes.
that may be,
I would say that we're looking to be about $20,000 under budget for the winter roads line. Again, that's in FY20. And so once June 30th hits, it's done, that budget's done. And so next year's winter roads budget, who knows what we're gonna be at, because who knows what the winter's gonna be like. So I think that's a good thing to be keeping in mind for the encumbrance when we get there, but I don't think you can count on those dollars. Right, I'm sorry.
no, I wasn't sure what the restrictions were.
Yeah,
I know, I was thinking if we raised it this year, even if we have to, because I think we all agree we need to have a road. We've all said we need a road, but if we had to increase it this year, then if we encumber some of these funds, next year's budget could be significant.
yeah, and as I'm thinking about it, you can only encumber from similar category to similar category.
Yes,
And so it's whatever Public Works is under, so that nice windfall that I mentioned is, as I think more about that is not, town meeting is not appropriated that money for Public Works, and you would not be able to encumber that. But it would go to your unassigned fund balance, which is great.
now with the real numbers of it, I know I always ask this, but do you have, like, what, as we've proposed it before, if we didn't make any changes, what would the mill rate be? Or what would like, we always use a $250,000 median
Yeah.
house.
So with
What
the
would
changes that are on this sheet of paper
Yeah,
right
with
now,
that as proposed at the
I
last
haven't
meeting.
made the change for the select board pay yet.
Okay.
I don't think
That's
it's
fine.
gonna be.
I don't think that's
$2,600.
The mill rate is $11.
$11 right now.
And it's actually a little bit less than your last meeting because I also put in that high school change that we talked about.
Now, if we increase it to that 45,000 like I proposed, what would that get you roughly? So right now it'd be 2750.
You'd be at $11.08.
Okay. I'll put that in. 250.
Which is $2,770 for a $250,000 home.
So it would, it'd be $20 more
Correct.
on a $250,000 household to put the additional 45,000 in.
And this is including Pacific Hall,
Yes. The whole budget currently includes Pacific Hall.
so that could go away.
Well, that's a
after
tricky
town
one.
meeting. Like,
I don't know how town meeting's gonna handle this. When that recreation article comes up, 'cause that's its own article on the warrants, it's possible the town meeting will just go with the number, and then later on, they'll get to the Pacific Hall acceptance article, and then I expect there will be a lively debate about how to proceed. If they choose to reject it, then there may be a motion to reconsider the recreation budget article and to lower it by $12,500.
because Pacific Hall was in the rec board budget.
Yes. The discussions about it, in my mind, have always sounded like recreation.
Okay.
Because of it being a community center.
Yep, like our community
Yeah, I
zone.
understand that, but I think we need to make that clear though. Like, I wouldn't have gotten that unless I asked you.
Okay,
So I
it's
think we
in the
need
budget
to-
there.
Right,
I-
but I'm
yeah.
worried that people are gonna be like, oh, the rec board, they just went sky high, what?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people won't stand up at town meeting and ask a question. So I think if it's gonna be in the rec board, but can we not make it in the rec board budget? Can it be its own?
Your warrant articles are derived by statute, what those cost centers are. And so recreation is its own cost center as to how you break those down. And so you can't have a budget article that's outside of what
Okay, I just don't want the rec board's budget to get dumped because they're
Yeah.
looking at this additional $12,000 and nobody understands
Why
what's
not,
it
why
for.
not just put it under buildings, under municipal?
Well, we have a town office building line, and that's one line, and then we have a public works building line, and that's its own line. So it's not a town office building,
Well,
And it's
okay,
not
how
a
about the
public works
community
building.
building?
the community building has its own reserve account. It's called the
Why,
community,
why not handle it just like the community building?
could create a reserve account for it.
That makes no sense.
I just want it to be clear. I don't want people to be
And,
confused
and that
and,
way, if it isn't, it's almost cleaner to deal with if it gets turned down, I would think.
Yeah.
You could create a Pacific Hall Reserve. That's now another warrant article that needs to be created to allow expenditures on the Pacific Hall to create a reserve for that.
Why don't we put that in as a warrant article after the vote on Pacific Hall itself?
We can do that, and then I can reduce
Mhm.
the rec board budget by that exact amount.
Okay.
It's not gonna have a net effect on property taxes, because that amount's still there.
sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
It's
But it's
just clearer,
clear.
right.
I think people understand
Yeah.
exactly what they're voting on.
And that way, the budget's still gonna be accurate one way or the other. Or
Yeah, the numbers
it'll
don't
reflect
change.
it, if
Yeah.
nothing else, we might come out $12,000.
Can someone make a motion?
Okay, hang on a second, I had a question from Keith here real quick.
Hi, yeah, so about Pacific Hall, I'm some of you aware that I meet some officials from the state there tomorrow at 9 o'clock to look at the building about some of the, what would be required for fire upgrades to the facility, but they'd also will need, like the town's engineer of some sort to go in and look at that evaluation and put some figures to that, but I'm pretty sure there's gonna have to be some ADA upgrades as well, but I don't know if that will reflect.
That's not in the budget.
Are you going with him to that meeting?
I wasn't planning to, because of everything going on, my wife working in healthcare, I'm on childcare duty tomorrow, so I can't be here.
The code enforcement is gonna be there.
But
Oh, okay.
Jess,
So, yeah, someone will be representing the town.
Okay.
But, so I don't know if that plays any effect on what's gonna cost in the houses.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that'll be presented at town meeting when it's discussed, and that way everyone in town gets to decide.
But I think if people stand up that night and ask questions, at least you can have something
Yeah.
that's solid to give them for information.
and that $12,500 does not include any of those
Right.
expenses.
No.
So
And-
Yeah.
And he's gonna be figuring what the requirements are for the building based on projected use, because we're not even sure of that.
Right, yeah, he's
Yeah.
aware of that.
Yeah.
And current use.
Yeah, and, because parking, we've already seen, we talked about this at our last meeting.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit of an issue as well, so,
It's a big issue if you ask the neighbors.
yeah.
I make a motion to create a budget line item for Pacific Hall operating reserve account and to put it on the town meeting warrant as an article after the vote on whether or not the town should accept Pacific Hall.
Second.
Does that sound all right?
It's been moved and seconded to create a budget line for the Pacific Hall,
Operating budget.
operating budget for the Pacific Hall. Hang on a second, Mark. How was it?
Want me to restate?
Yeah, if you would restate that, because
Okay. It to be put on the town warrant as an article to be voted on after directly after the article, whether or not to accept Pacific Hall.
Okay, yep. As stated by Kevin. Is there any discussion? Mark?
It was unclear to me, would the warrant article include what Keith and the CEO are going to find out tomorrow? Or just stay at the 12,500 figure that Chris has provided, or whatever it was, 12,000.
I don't know how we could get those numbers by the time to have it on the warrant myself. And I think probably that would be the vote before the operating budget would be a really good time to have that discussion.
It could be given as a handout though, couldn't it? At the
uh,
town meeting, we've done that before, where we've had something we couldn't.
I expect, expect Keith might be here for that meeting and. be able to-
I think it would be a little misleading not to have true cost.
No, but we don't know what it is, Mark.
And I think that, like, once again, I think the parking is gonna be a bigger issue than that as well. You know, I think that, if we're gonna have to talk about that as well, so.
So I think, more I'm reviewing the draft warrant that I've been working on in front of me. So in the past, the way the warrant has been structured is you have a specific warrant article called transfers to reserves, and this is a general transfer to all the reserves, and it's, you know, in my budget, it's broken out how it is, but in the warrant article, it's just one lump sum number. So what I'm thinking of doing is having 3 warrant articles on the warrant. So the first one, do you want to accept it? The second one, create the reserve, and the third one is authorize a transfer to the reserve of X dollars.
Okay.
Does that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
And just so the minutes of your meeting, I think the way I draft the motion, what you just said is, and to put it on the warrants. That way, as my thinking evolves on this, if it changes, you have prescribed very specifically what you want. It's just, you want it on the warrant. I get it.
Great. So, back to the budget.
William, have you voted yet?
Oh, yes, no, we haven't, that's right, all the discussion, yeah, that's right. Forgot, it's been a few minutes. Okay, all those in favor?
Keep it straight.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly,
He just wants out of here.
yeah. All right, now back to the budget. What does everybody think on, whether we should put any more money in there for the road, how much we should put? I guess that seems to be the big number right now to play with.
So that road construction money, obviously we just throwing a figure out there. That would pay the contractor, the engineer, and the town for any work that they might do on that project.
No, public work, if we did our own work on that,
Yeah.
then it would just,
Well, I mean culverts and that sort of thing, because
if
you,
we bought supplies, yes, the culverts would come out of that. But if it was the time, the labor, that's just part of their wages.
So what's the number we're at right now?
So we have 212 is what we, after we moved around some stuff at the last meeting, we're at 212. And that would be for the mill rate of $11, which is $27.50 on a $250,000 house. If we added 45,000, it would be 1108. So it'd be 2770 on a $250,000 house. To get the 40, and that's 45. That still only gives you 257, but it's,
Right.
I mean,
pavement's gonna cost you $80,000.
I almost think if we did the Hodgson Road, we could probably get by with that amount.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, I
It's
mean-
short, I mean, it's about a quarter mile. I drove it the other day since the last meeting and it definitely needs to be repaired for sure.
Right.
But it's not a long.
That's not a long road, is,
And it looks like some of the road base might be okay on it.
and like, actually, Mike just brought that up. I know we have to be careful how much the town gets into it, but if we had any involvement in helping at all, the town crew did, then that could also help some as well. I mean, it could be very basic help, but just cleaning up stuff or cutting down some trees on the edges.
Widening out the right of way to get it prepped.
Limbing, whatever, anything basically to save a few bucks to help
Yeah, we
out.
just have to make sure we did that before the contract.
Yes, yeah.
because we changed some culverts and stuff in on that road last year already, so.
We did, the engineer's plans, I think, during the drafting process, could be, for example, if the engineer proposed replacing one of those culverts, and we saw you replacing a culvert that was replaced last year, don't do that.
Right.
Right.
You guys, what does everybody think? Is that?
I think that sounds reasonable. If it's just about 250.
I think it's realistic.
How many,
I
you
really
have,
do.
you
I
have
think that's-
footage on that road, length,
It's almost exactly a quarter of a mile.
almost exactly a quarter mile.
It's really close.
And I know what Dow Point came in at, and I know we could save a lot over
Oh, yeah.
that doing some different.
So,
And that's, and Dow Point is probably twice as long as.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that,
yeah.
so.
that works
I
out too.
think we're pretty, I would feel pretty confident that we would be okay.
$265,874. What did we come up with for total? What did you get for-
Around 250.
I got 265,874. Just roughly, that's what it just cost. If I used my plug number for the road, we just built over my place or.
Yep.
Which is about the same width,
265. Yeah,
874.
we're looking at 257.
So we're
Pretty close.
close.
Yeah.
I make a motion to add $45,000 to the summer road budget for the road line for the project.
Sorry.
What you want?
The road improvement program reserve transfer.
Okay, there you go. Road improvement program transfer. Excuse me, new motion. I make a motion to add $45,000 to the road improvement program transfer.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to increase the transfer to the road improvement program by $45,000. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
If you give me a minute, I actually have, I gave you a proposed capital improvement schedule for Tremont roads about 1.5 years ago. And I included Dodge Point on that list, and I do have the length that I measured. Just for your own,
On Dodge Point or Hodge?
on Hotline, sorry. It's a long document, so I scroll. Here we go, it's 1,100 feet.
Okay, so close to a quarter mile?
Yeah.
Wow, good.
Yeah.
All right, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna plug that in and I start giving you the amounts for each cost center. And if you could make motions for each of those, then I can stick those in the warrant and we can close the book on the budget.
Okay.
Your mill rate is now $11.09.
$2.09.
And that was a cent higher because of the select board.
$1,950.
All right, if you're ready, I can start giving you each of those warrant articles,
One to a time. All right. then.
one at a time, and we can just do it, yeah. So, administration, total expenditure is $631,073. 631,073.
Do you have a warrant article for it, or do we need that?
Warrant Article 17, wait, sorry, let me double check one thing.
Oh, it probably doesn't matter if we include that, does it?
Just say the administration budget.
Okay. I make a motion to have the budget for administration for the fiscal year 21 budget, $631,073.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to have recommend the town manager have $631,073 in the administration budget for the FY 21 budget. Gets very few money.
Something like that.
Something like that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
If it's easier, the addendum manager's memo has a draft motion on the bottom of it for each of these.
The addendum. Oh, okay.
All right, so the next one is protections. And it is $296,775.
296 workers.
296,775.
I make a motion to request $296,775 for the protection on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to request $296,775 for protection on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. It's much easier that way. We keep them standard.
Yeah,
Any discussion? All those in favor? I thought you were raising your hand, Mike, to talk.
All right, your next one is debt service. And this one is $102,592.
make a motion to request $102,592 for debt service on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to request $102,592 for debt service on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Okay, so recreation's a little tricky, so I have to take out the civic hall. Give me a moment. So it's 29,682.
Keep going.
You're on a roll.
I make a motion to request $29,682 for recreation on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to request $29,682 for the recreation on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Public Works has $408,167.
I make a motion to request $408,167 for Public Works on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to request $408,167 for Public Works on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Okay, the next one is general assistance. This is $1,000.
Do we have any this year at all?
No.
Okay. I make a motion to request $1,000 for general assistance on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to request $1,000 for general assistance on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Next one is committees. Before you do this one, I will say, this has come up in the past. I don't know historically why the Historical Society is listed in the budget as a committee, but it is. And it's not possible to change in our accounting software because then you lose, it looks like you're creating a new budget line for something that's already there somewhere else and you lose that consistency over the years. Our auditors don't like to see that. And so I'm just telling you, the committees line includes the Historical Society, even though they're not the town committee. Just the way
It's
it
just
is.
just a name.
It's just a name, and every year someone from the Historical Society says, why are we in committees? It's like, historically, that's where you've always been. So anyway, $11,001 is the overall committee expense.
I make a motion to request $11,001 for committees for the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to request $11,001 for committees on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
I think we should shorten the dollar and make it even.
Yeah.
The Board of Appeals has a $1 budget.
Oh, okay.
Just there to hold it open in case the Board of Appeals meets and we have to pay them. Donations to third parties, you have a budget of $26,130.
I didn't get the number, Chris, sorry.
$26,130.
I make a motion to request $26,130 for third-party requests at the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to request $26,130 for donations to third parties on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Solid waste, you have a budget of $226,277.
You guys slow. What was the number again, Chris? Sorry, I'm trying to write this up.
226.
Yep.
277.
He's getting ahead of me by that time already.
Yeah, now I'm trying to get the name in.
I make a motion to request $226,277 for solid waste for the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to request $226,277 for solid waste on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Contingency, $13,584.
I make a motion to request $13,584 for contingency on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to request $13,584 for contingency on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
This next one's tricky. So transfers to reserves, I think you don't want to include Pacific Hall here. Is that correct? If you want that its own warrant article later on?
I was thinking we'll put it on an article later on.
Okay. So in that case, it's $261,000.
Even?
261 even.
Yes.
Make a motion to request $261,000 for transfers to reserves in the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to request $261,000 for transfer to reserve on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Your last one is the interfund transfer. So this is to the library operating fund. The amount is $60,079.
Okay, how do you want that categorized?
Interfund transfers.
That's all.
Yes.
I make a motion to request $60,079 for interfund transfers on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to request $60,079 for interfund transfers on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Let me check the warrant for how the next one is worded. Okay, so this next one is other revenues, and so these are amounts that you authorize to raise to offset. The way the article reads is to see what sum the town will vote to reduce the amount to be raised by property taxation, the municipal budget by using reserves, fund balance, and estimated revenues. And so that amount is $772,542.
And that's going to be transferred from reserves? Is that,
Some of it is a transfer from reserve, some of it is taxes other than property taxes, like vehicle excise tax, intergovernmental revenues, like payments in lieu of taxes, et cetera.
okay, so what's the cost center you wanted to move to, I guess? Is
It's
that-
not being moved,
Well, that's what I
it's its own warrant article, so it's
Okay,
other revenues is what it's called. So to raise that amount
to other revenues,
as other revenues.
that's what it's.
Yeah,
Okay, I make a motion to request $772,542 to other revenues on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to request $772,542 for other revenues on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
you're done.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
That ends up being a lot more warrant articles than that though, doesn't it?
Well, there's a number of education articles, all your
But
ordinance.
those are all the municipal ones, I thought I got broken down one.
Those are all your municipal expenditure ones. I mean, I've got the warrant in front of me. Then it's your tax cap override, your tax due date and interest rate, all that kind of stuff. But you'll see those when you actually see the draft warrant. And I always just put in there, select board recommends adoption. So when you see those, think to yourself, do we recommend adoption? When you sign the warrant, that's taken as you signed off on that.
All right. Next thing would be our COVID-19 update. Chris, would you like to?
Yeah.
Give us a brief on that?
So there's sort of two sides to this right now. There's what we're doing as a town, and then I included in your pack, or as a handout tonight, looks like this, my notes from a phone call, a large conference call with 1,000 people on it from Maine CDC today. I'll start with the Maine CDC one because I think there's less for you to do there, and then we'll go have a nice discussion about what's going on in the town. As of 1 o'clock this afternoon, they had 17 positive or presumptive positive cases in Maine, including 2 hospitalizations and 1 in a person under 18. The bulk of the cases are in Cumberland County, but they do have 1 in Knox County. And they do now have evidence of community transmission in Cumberland County. And that means that the case that they have cannot be traced to another known case, so it's just passing in the community. There have been some cases in the Maritimes, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. They're about 4 to 5 days behind us. And the Maine CDC, the director did want to say that they have been preparing for this for over 2 months once it became known that this was an issue. They do have, there's a lot of information for healthcare facilities. I'll sort of skip over that since we are not a healthcare facility. The governor did declare a civil state of emergency yesterday on Sunday. Large gatherings of more than 50 people should be postponed for the foreseeable future, and 10 or more people if those gatherings include anyone who's in a vulnerable population, which is considered over 60. The overall focus as far as what we can do is social distancing. That is still the #1 recommended way to reduce transmission. Their big goal is to reduce the intensity of the outbreak. They know, we obviously know there is an outbreak that has happened. And so flatten the curve so that the peak of the curve is not overwhelming our current health system. Hand washing, strongly, strongly recommended. A lot of people, this is just FYI, resource requests. So they talked about the shortage of personal protective equipment. Organizations are able to request PPE from the CDC through the district public health liaisons. We do have one for our area. You can see there's 4 tiers of priority for who gets those. You can see that municipal government is not on any of the tiers, which is fine. We don't need masks and 95 masks or surgical masks here at the town office. And so I'm not requesting those for our staff. We wouldn't get them anyway. But you can see that, firefighters are in tier 4. If they're firefighters providing EMS, then they're in tier 1. And I did text earlier today with Chief Higgins regarding, the request process. It sounds like you're in touch with Andrew Sankey, Hancock County Emergency Management Director, to have those requests processed through him. And then there was a long Q&A. I don't want to belabor what you can see there. You can read it. I think, one of the big questions that has come up, well, I'll transition. So I'll stop there for that phone call, and then I'll transition to what we as a town are doing regarding the office. Any questions? Okay. So our town office is closed to the public, but we are staffing it. And so we had Jan here, Jan and I were both here today, and the assessor was also here. We've got plans for the rest of the week for at least 1 person and usually 2 people to be in the office. And my request for you tonight is to authorize me to do that until at least March 30th. That seems to be the 2-week period is the minimum that most other organizations are doing. The schools are closed for that period of time. For example, a number of town offices have done the same thing as that. I've used one of the ballot boxes is up in that the entry area to the town office. So if somebody really did need to, conduct business, what we would do is, or what we're going to do tomorrow is that's going to go outside. You can drop whatever paperwork you have in there. Then one of the office staff can come out there, open it up, get the paperwork, bring it inside, process the transaction. It's cumbersome. It's very slow, but we can do it. Yeah, it works. And it's what I think is safest and healthiest for our staff.
You could still do vehicle registrations. And
Yeah, I
things
mean,
that way. Or
can't
mail,
emphasize enough. The vehicle registrations are all online. There's some exceptions. There's some, new vehicle, or if there's an RV, or, there are some exceptions where there is an in-person need, and by all means, come in. if that is necessary. A lot of this business can be conducted online. Let's see here. If a member of our staff does decide that they need to quarantine or self-quarantine because they are either showing symptoms or they're, one member of their household is showing symptoms, of course, that is what they should be doing. And we'll reevaluate as necessary if that hasn't become an imminent threat right now. And so, but I can imagine in the next week or two, it could, and I might have to reduce operations even more so. I did earlier, right just before the meeting started, I got a note from Casco, the town of Casco, that they have completely shut down. They're not even open for people to come up to the front door because they had a staff member who was concerned, and they just said completely shut it down, and that is within the realm of possibility for us. As far as paying staff, we already have the budget in there to be paying them for this time. I believe it is appropriate to be paying them during this time. And so payroll will continue as normal with your confirmation tonight. It will also not deduct from their leave banks because they can't come in. I'm telling them not to come in, so it's not fair for me to force them to take sick leave.
So we'll still have a code enforcement officer that'll be able to accept emails,
He'll be.
and we'll
the
still
code
have
enforcement
we'll
officer
still have a public
scheduled-
works staff that will be fully operational.
The code enforcement officer is scheduled to be in tomorrow. He's not going to come in on Thursday. The public works staff, with how mild this winter has been, there hasn't been any pressing need for them to be here. If there was a snowstorm, they will come in. If there are down trees, if there are washouts that need to be addressed, they will come in. But otherwise, I'm having them come in to cut brush, and that feels like not a necessary essential function right now. And so I have the public works staff staying at home. They're on call. They're just a phone call away. If they're essential,
I just don't know what their exposure is. I mean, everyone's got a chance of exposing themselves, but I can see in a confined building, but if they're working outside, they're probably safer than anybody.
they're still working with each other, and they're still working out in public, and we have community transmission. I think the guidance is, we're down to essential functions, and that's what I've tried to follow. I don't think that the current activities, they're important in the long term for the town, but in terms of the immediate needs, I don't believe that what they're currently doing is immediately necessary. That being said, if we're trying to staff the town office, and I think it is good to be on the safe side to have two or more people here at one time. And if I'm having difficulty getting staff in here, the office staff in here, I might ask one of the public works guys just to come in and sit in the office and, read the paper. There's not much they can do. If we can find things, we'll give them things to do.
That's my biggest concern,
Yeah.
because I always have a problem with one person being in this office on any given day, not just this situation, because it's a safety issue.
Yep.
And this is putting people sort of on edge a little bit more. So I think that if you have one of the girls here, one of the guys here, then either you need to be in the office with them those hours, or we need two people here at all times. Year round, all the time, not just because of this. People are going to be upset that this is happening and it's disrupting everybody's lives. It's a nightmare for everybody and everything. But those, I say girls, but it's not just the girls, need somebody else for backup when that one customer is angry and, throwing a fit at the door because they can't get their boat in, March.
Yeah,
So I just want to be adamant that we have two people.
I agree, and I'm striving for that with staffing. The only times when I can see that might not be the case is if we have two people here and one of them goes to the post office or to the bank,
That's different.
and they come back.
Yes.
There might be half an hour where they're.
Sure, that's, yeah, I get that. But if you're gonna be open from 9 to 2 or whatever, we need two people.
Yep, and then the other thing is if infection starts, if people are actually starting to get infected, it could be very hard for.
Let's deal with that when we have
Let's
to.
do. I agree.
Hopefully we don't have to, but let's deal with that when it's a.
And that's the other part. I want to make sure that we leave it open as like your discretion on, because this week, this sounds good. Next week,
Right.
things could change.
Right, yeah.
If things change, then maybe we do have to shut down completely. I mean, we just, things are progressing so quickly, it seems like that A week ago, we weren't even, at least I wasn't thinking about this at all, so. Mark,
So the code enforcement officer going to be in tomorrow, but not Thursday, but how about the following week? Not at all?
I believe he's expecting to be here on Tuesdays.
Tuesday, the following week too.
That
So
is,
one day a week, okay.
well, like the board just said, 1 week at a time. I don't know what is, I don't want to promise you that next Tuesday and then someone in his family gets sick and then that's a different
Why can't
story.
he be here this
No,
Thursday?
just what the.
He preferred, I gave him the option Tuesday or Thursday.
Oh.
And he preferred, Tuesday.
So there's gonna be nobody from Public Works if something comes up, if there's an emergency.
They're just a phone call away.
I mean, I just think with like sanitation and things, we should have somebody up here cleaning this place when we need to. And we should have somebody here full time. I mean, that's kind of essential. It's a liability to have nobody here. The same thing for harbor master. I mean, we gotta work in harbor out here. To me, that's essential personnel, just as much as the fire department or us right here tonight. I mean, somebody should be here. Maybe not everybody, but at least somebody.
Yeah, I should say the office staff who's here are sanitizing things throughout the
I
workday.
have another question about
Yeah.
cleaning.
Yes.
Because we do have somebody that comes and clean, but is that like 2 days a week or?
It's currently 1 day a week. She and I spoke today, and she said she was more than willing to come in more.
Okay.
I said at this point, since there's not, an immediate threat of infection in our office because we don't, I said we'll stick to one.
Yeah, okay.
But like I said, we are sanitizing surface, like office staff are sanitizing all the surfaces throughout the day as we're using them. And I think office staff can do that just as well as public
Sure,
works can.
Keith,
I did speak with Chris and Jamie and whatever today, but I mean, those are a few issues that I have. I have a list of things I want to mention tonight, but I think this is the time when, as much of the available staff, I understand the distancing and exposures. This is the time that people should be present. And this one, they should realize that they're town employees and it's possible. So, because it's only, I don't know, that's my opinion, and that's kind of the direction some of the notes of the rest of the community.
Just to add to that, I mean, even if we had to have people check the temperature, what's a thermometer cost? I mean, that's what a lot of municipal government's doing right now, is just watching something down in Augusta. They're checking everyone's temperature before they come to work.
would the town crew be able to, I mean, would they clean? Like, would they be fine with cleaning if you had someone in here and just, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have a problem with this place being cleaned daily.
This room.
Yeah, but I mean, this upstairs is gonna, well,
I think my hesitation is just, it's so much harder to do social distancing if you have 5 or 6 people working in this office, even cleaning.
Yeah.
All day long.
no, I wouldn't think 5. I would think like your 2 people that you're trying to get in to have in all the time. Say the code enforcer was in both Tuesdays and Thursdays. He could be a third person in those days, but other than that, if you had someone, one of the girls in, if you're in instead, and just alternate days, and then if you did have one of the crew a couple of those days, then just have them clean, just have them clean whatever they can.
And what about patching roads and things like that? I mean, we just put that on hold for now.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a good idea.
You mean potholes?
Yeah, I mean, there's
anything they could.
anything
If
to
we're
come up,
paying them, they
Chris.
might as well be here doing something.
If you,
That to me, it's like police or fire department's essential.
I kind of would like to see as much being done as normal as possible, if we keep it safe myself also. I think one thing that might be really nice in the public works is basically assign them a truck right now, so they're not everyone's jumping into every truck.
that's good.
And,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
just give them a little distance that way. I think it would be good to try to keep things going. I think this is gonna go on for a little while. And it would be nice to stay as far ahead of the curve. And I think, again, if something changes that, I think it'd be good to change that on short notice. But I think at this point, it would be good to try to business as normal as much as possible. And they don't really interact with the public that much. I mean, they've got some distance there too. So, I mean, again, if there's any real safety concerns, I see it, right?
And I'd say the
Think
same,
about
I'd say the
this as
same for the
normal
harbor
meeting.
too. I mean, the safety of our harbors and the harbor masters.
I think as much business as normal as we can do is anything to do.
So I think then everyone's hours will be as normal.
I think as normal, but with restricted access to the actual town
the building.
office.
Oh, yeah.
And the only thing I would fear with the harbor master is if he's in his harbor master shack down there,
He's the only one in
constantly
there.
getting people
No.
stopping in.
He's gonna lock on that door.
No, I would do the same thing as the town office. I think if he's there, he shouldn't be inviting people in.
Either that or just have him come
The
down
box.
and check, go around, check the harbors with his truck and do some work down here or something. So it's not, because it's gonna be hard when you're in an 8x10 building or whatever it is to sit there and say no to every person who bangs on the window.
Yeah.
I think that's putting him in a tough spot.
And back to the code enforcement, there really isn't any reason he couldn't be here 2 days, right?
I
I mean, I know you gave him the option,
Yeah,
but he's scheduled for 2 days, so if everybody else is,
And I told them all along it's contingent on select board
Sure.
confirmation, so
Sure.
it should
Guess-
be.
I mean, if he's in the building and the doors are locked, I mean, he's getting the same exposure as the girls out front, so I don't see why there isn't a reason why he couldn't do his normal 2 days and keep, like you said, keep business as
Yeah,
normal
I
as
think
he
it's-
can.
I get a feeling we're gonna be at a point where we're forced to do this, and it would be nice to be ahead of the curve as
Right.
much as we could. I think.
Right.
And again, I don't see any,
Get as much done as we can right now.
yeah, it doesn't look like that's an extreme risk at this point. And I think it may come when it seems a lot worse, and we definitely could go that way. And I wouldn't hesitate at all, personally that. But I think it's really nice if we can continue business as normal, as much as possible.
And then be willing to regroup. I mean, we might have to have this
Well,
discussion in 2 days and change the whole, but
Yeah.
yeah, be flexible and willing to.
I have no problem with locking the doors. I think everybody should work in their entirety. I have no problem with them locking the doors and doing like Ellsworth did and saying, you know what, here's a box, put stuff in it, or we'll mail you whatever you need. What's your mailing address? But I can agree with you. Too many people in the office is probably not a good idea. If we got a couple hundred people in the community and you got various people coming in at different times or people that are coming from other places coming in to ask questions, I would rather see them not coming in the building because that's that much more desanitizing we got to do and cleaning. And everybody's coughing and hacking and everyone's paranoid about it right now. So that's how I'd like to see it, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and along that line, I think probably it would be just as good to have the harbor master's office unoccupied during all this. He's got a phone. I mean, if there's really something he needs to.
Stick
show
his
up,
number
they
right on the
can-
door and
they can
done.
Do it outdoors, staying away from each other.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think,
Inquiries
be
by
aware.
phone, email, or mail, and list them, stick it on the door, done.
again, assigning the town vehicle and whatever he's gonna do.
For Justin, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only, if you're gonna make everyone else come into work, then you would have to, I would think, he should come in, but if he just goes around and checks everything, I know he always does anyway, but
Yeah.
just go Seal Cove, go down to this harbor, make sure everything's good, and he really wouldn't have to step foot out of his truck as far as a safety measure. He could just do that, and then if he had to do paperwork or whatever, then, would
Do it
there
out
be
of
an
his
issue
vehicle.
with him coming in here,
I mean,
Chris,
you
or
could come in
anything?
here and use a computer if you wanted to, right?
And he's
Yeah, I mean,
actually
he had
public
to.
works foreman currently also, so.
Sure. So there's
Oh,
enough.
that's
I haven't noticed, the boat's not in the water yet, is it?
Correct, it's not.
Maybe it'd be a good time to launch that too, just so it's ready. What's it?
And I get schedules are gonna get mixed up. I mean, I'm sure that there's childcare issues and things like that, but everybody's in that same boat right now. And, we're gonna have to all juggle. And, I know a lot of high school kids are offering to babysit and stuff like that. So there are options out there for parents that are, trying to figure out the kid's situation.
That's key.
I just want to add, one of the things in the meeting we had today was discussed, like town employees and staffing, like particularly highway, sewer, and water department people to avoid their general habit of hitting a coffee shop in the morning and socialize. So just to remember that every exposure they get, they're bringing it back to their employees. So I don't know if there should be Chris seems pretty versed in some of the lists that he has just general hand washing and cleaning, but avoiding when they're here at their work turn. I mean, it's gotta happen on their way home or on their way to work, but they should try to avoid those. incidents
Going into the local stores and
Yeah.
chit chatting.
I mean, you can't control what they do outside of their work envelope, but that was one of the recommendations. They same with firefighters and stopping and chatting, and then you just get in the emergency room and leave. They don't hang out and drink the coffee machine. It's just limiting your exposures during work time.
The only thing I can see with this is I don't know if there's gonna be enough workload for the usual crew. Should we put a number on it with that, like a maximum number, Chris, with that?
I'm actually a number of,
People that we want in the building, so that there can only be 5 people, you know?
I would try to keep,
It's
office staff in the building and public works
yeah.
separate if you could. I mean,
Yep.
I don't think you need to mix everyone if you don't need to.
No.
Our master can operate out of here if we hit to.
And he has a laptop.
Yeah.
It sounds like you want full regularly scheduled staffing
With a locked door.
with a locked.
Or the
Yeah.
locked door.
As much as makes sense, and again, subject to change. on a moment's
And the
notice.
last thing is to authorize the town manager to make further closures at his discretion in the draft motion. Before I did today's closure and had people go home, I had a discussion with Jamie, and I would continue to do that before I made any decisions.
The problem I see about having everyone stop working now, I don't think this is gonna be only 2 weeks. I think we're looking at a couple months or more. And I think that shutting everything down now at this point is really, it could be a real problem.
It's gonna make a
So
harder road
I would
for us.
like, again, I'd like to see business as usual as long as it makes sense.
But if someone can't come in because of childcare and whatever, then that's fine.
Yeah, I
Like,
think we
we're-
should be extremely flexible on
Yeah,
that kind of.
Absolutely, but would that be a deduction from their sick or vacation leave bank?
I would think so.
I mean, I say no, as long as, I mean, we need to make sure that they're making an effort to find childcare rather than just throwing in the towel and saying, can't come, don't have to go to
Maybe
your
weeks on
babysit.
end.
There are options out there.
I agree, but
And
I
I
don't
don't
see
know.
a way to have it, either everyone's expected to come in, and if you don't, then you have to use your leave bank. Or, I mean, I guess if you just want to blanket suspend use of leave during this time, anyone can use it, can be absent without using leave. But then I don't know what the incentive is for people to come in.
Yeah.
Right,
don't
I
it's-
think as of now, you are supposed to be here. You're supposed to be here as normal, with the exception of the door being locked. Until the circumstances change drastically or we have to revisit this, then we'll deal with how you use your sick time or how you know.
So currently, you're still using your leave time. Okay.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and
I
again, that's, if that
and it could
becomes an
change.
issue, let us know.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you, I'm planning to be absent on tomorrow and Friday, and I can use leave time for that. That's not a problem for my own childcare.
I just think it's gonna be a lot more of an issue down the road than it is right now.
I agree.
If you
and we
look,
need you to be the front line. You're the guy.
I mean, you look at Italy right now, they're handing out ration cards to people to take to the grocery store, to get the groceries outside the grocery store. It's pretty bad.
And the whole situation stinks. I mean, I feel terrible about even having this conversation, and it's really, you don't expect it to affect little old Maine, but sadly it is, and it's getting worse and worse by the minute.
Can we kind of follow some of the other towns' models that I've noticed and start using Zoom to conduct our town meetings? I know Ellsworth's doing it. They were talking about doing it down in Eastport. So anyone that's got a smartphone, we basically can conduct our meeting that way and make it a publicly viewable thing. We post it on our webpage. We post it at the entrance to the town office on the outside of the glass. Anybody wants to view our meeting, they can view it that way. If we're gonna limit the exposure of the staff, we should limit our exposure as well.
I hate to be a challenge on this. I want to keep you guys on the right side of the law, and currently it is not a legal meeting unless it's in person.
Right, but given the government's order,
The governor was asked to make that part of her emergency declaration, and it wasn't part of the emergency declaration.
And also, I feel like if you're asking your crew to come in, if you're gonna ask your crew and say, look, we gotta have 4 people upstairs
Yeah.
all the time, then what's the difference between the 5 of us sitting
We
here?
need
But we're allowing the public in too.
I think that we should, I mean, we might have to revisit that. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
I think we might have to, I know it's illegal.
Whether we
at
bring
this point to allow, to not allow people in, but I think that we will have to look at how we can get around that, or maybe we might not be able to allow public.
If you're
You know,
able to get around.
I think other towns, well, if other towns are doing it, we're all breaking the law together. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
if Ellsworth's
Take us
doing it, it's a
all.
pretty big city. They had a 4-hour meeting on Sunday, emergency meeting, and they said, we're doing everything off Zoom. Done.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, my gut feeling is I think it's something we ought to think about, but this time if we're asking the staff to come in, I think we ought to suck it up and be here.
Yeah,
We can push
absolutely.
Mark further back in the room if we need to.
Mark,
Yeah, that was a question I had. The planning board, of course, we often have to approve applications. Now, this is gonna get worse before it gets better. There's no doubt about that. It's only a matter of time before somebody's gonna test positive in Hancock County or here on the island or whatever. And if we're not having meetings, these applications aren't getting approved. It's an emergency, I understand that, but is there a way we can deal with that? Or are we just gonna tell people tough luck?
I know, and I think for the
I mean,
planning board too, it's harder because you really have to have someone present that, you know, they're gonna explain what their project is or what they're gonna be doing. I don't know,
Can the
it's such
planning
a
board
hard
do
call
that by
right now.
phone? So like if I had a permit and I needed to go to the planning board, can I call in to the planning board? The planning board sits here, I can be on the phone, I'm the applicant.
Would be at the planning board's discretion, but yes, it would be legal.
it would be.
Okay, so
The
there's,
The planning board members have to be here.
right, but if me, Joey citizen, need my permit,
If the chair
And I
of the
don't wanna come
planning
to the
board
meeting.
permitted it,
Mhm.
then I would not raise an objection.
So we could have your number, Chris, on the door and say, call this number if you have any comments, and then you could sit here and, you know, we could put it on speaker or whatever and do it that way. That's actually a really good idea if you could.
Chris says, you talked to MMA about any of this or?
I've had frequent communication with MMA,
I'll
and this is their
Okay.
recommendation is virtual meetings are not
Okay,
permitted.
even in this, at this
As
time.
of this afternoon, they are
But
not.
we could allow people to attend the meeting virtually.
I'm squeamish about that. I think a public meeting is a public meeting and the public has the right to be present.
Well, I'm not saying even disallowing them at this point. I'm saying, can we allow them if they want to do it?
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, we could put that out there as the primary option for these meetings, and hopefully
Just push
most people
that.
would choose to do that.
And post it.
Where
Saying,
this could get confusing though is, okay, so Mackenzie said, okay, the applicant can call in, that sort of thing. How about the butters and things like, other people who are, here to object to a certain project
yeah, that's not a
or have
perfect.
concerns,
Not
it's
Same option.
a difficult subject.
Same
It
option.
is.
I do multiple meetings when, where people are on, all sitting remotely with Zoom, is one that usually we use. And the same thing, you can put as many people as you want on one of those meetings. They're all welcome to do that. And again, if we're not barring them from coming in, they've also got the option of coming in and being here in person.
But I think if we're gonna continue to have meetings, any of these meetings, then I really think we need to find a way to try to figure out how to not have too many people present, because then we're going against you have 7 people on the board, right, on the planning board.
Yes, we do now,
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah.
If we're not
and
allowing
then
the
if-
public into the building upstairs, we shouldn't be letting them
No,
in downstairs
I-
either.
yeah,
It one's, I mean, yes, we're making people work, but we're not allowing the public in. We shouldn't allow them in here either.
Don't you think MMA is going to be flexible with
It's not
those?
MMA, it's,
It's a state.
it's,
It's a
it's,
state
it's a
law.
state law,
Yeah.
and they're just interpreting the state law for us.
I think it gets to the point where we have to go against state law to do it.
But how do we do
I'm
it? Well, how do we do it
reading it
outside
all
of a meeting? I guess is what I'm getting at. Do we just all have we'll have, if we decide next week we don't want to have we don't want to have it, we have to come in here and have a meeting to decide we're not going to, right? We're not going to allow the public in here.
So you're talking about next week's select board meeting?
Well, or the week after, or,
Town meeting.
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is we should make a decision. It'd be easier to make a decision now than when this
So
whole
you're,
county's contaminated, people have it.
so a note of procedure, so if you, for example, scheduled your next meeting for March 30th, as a motion right now, and the chair ordered me to cancel that meeting, then that meeting would be canceled. The chair has that authority. If, does that sort of address how do you not have a meeting if you've already?
I think it's going to be canceled.
Let's
Let's just say that.
I'm already recommending that your March 23rd meeting be canceled. I hope that you don't cancel your March 30th meeting because I want you guys to stay on track to have town meeting, and I just don't want to, I mean.
I think we're going to have to find a different way to do it then.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, truth be told, Chris, we're in a situation now where we're going to have to make the decision sooner than later.
Yeah, I hear you.
When there's 200 cases in Maine,
I'm
It's too late.
bound by a code of ethics for the International City County Management Association to follow the law, and I can't sit here and advise you to break the law. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that would be a decision we can make as selectmen if it comes down to that. And at this point, I don't think it's necessary, but it may become that way, and I think we should do what we need to do at that point. And that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think your idea, I would have to figure out how the technology works, but I think I could figure out how to set up a Zoom meeting with the laptop that's streaming right now and put, the information on how to access it. I don't like the idea of locking the door and preventing someone from walking in because I think that makes it illegal. I think that action would make it illegal. But
I think we're capable of taking that responsibility out of your hands.
You-
Is there any
Right,
provisions?
yes, that falls
when-
on us,
When they
not-
declare a
Yeah.
national emergency, is there any provisions in that protect us on something like that? There's got to be.
If the governor included that in the order, then I think there would be protection.
So I have a few things, this conversation keep going on and on, but at 4:30 today, the town of Bar Harbor did an emergency meeting and they did a pandemic ordinance that prevents cruise ships coming until the end of April. Also tonight, the town of Mount Desert has held a meeting with their selectmen to enact the emergency management plan at the base level, and that by enabling that management plan, they've drafted the contingency that regulates meetings and office staff and stuff like that. But on Wednesday, all the area fire chiefs and emergency response leaders are gonna meet again by phone, so we don't have to get in a room together and discuss the caches of supplies, like Chris had mentioned earlier, that are available to each of us, the amount of staffing. We're gonna eliminate all compromised people within our membership that shouldn't be there. But the other thing, one of the things we're talking about is that employment, that town staffing and stuff should try to maintain as normal interactions as they can, operations as they can without exposing themselves to the general population, which sounds like what you guys have already discussed, but I'm not really sure, but it seems like the town of Mount Desert feels that by enacting their emergency safety plan at the base level, it can kind of control more of what they're doing. Including in that is they're going to be staffing their fire station instead of currently just during the daytime shifts. They're going to be staffing 24 hours and 7 days a week. So but I don't know if Tremont's at that point yet, but that's up for. I don't know how that meeting turned out. That's where they're sitting in the meeting right right now, discussing the same things you guys are. But, so early last Monday, Hancock County Emergency Management contacted me about the town staff and town, operations, and I placed a call in Katie about, are you guys ready for potentially having to close doors or work from home? And it seems like, so they've been working for 2 weeks now, trying to identify what they can and can't do from home, so I think so that may be the next step, is simply forwarding calls to their cell phones or homes, because I don't know, we can't just completely cut off all the ties to everybody, because that's where we're at, but I don't know, we'll find out more on Wednesday. Every day it's changed, we've all seen that, every single day it's changing what we're getting for information, but that may be a possibility, is enacting some type of emergency clause. I'm sure Chris looking into what other towns are doing currently.
And that's what I was thinking, is if we just plan on putting the meeting on for the 30th, like I said, I feel like we should be able to gather as a group of 5 if we're expecting everyone else to gather as well and work here. And then as far as the crowd, we'll see how everything pans out in the next couple of weeks. I mean, it could change drastically one way or the other.
Put a $200 tablet in the window. You guys want to watch it from outside.
The thing
Yeah.
is, we can't have that much on the agenda, right? I mean, we gotta
anything
sign the
planned 2
budget,
weeks out right now is gonna be just.
which I know it
Yeah,
messes
that's
your,
right.
your
I-
schedule up by skipping a meeting, but I mean, we could keep our meetings quick, to the point. Let's do what we have to do and,
Pulling up.
I think at this point, this time it's pointless to try to figure out what's gonna be happening in 2 weeks.
Right.
yeah, that's true.
It
We have a
seems to
plan for
change
now.
hourly. I mean, not daily, it's like
Yeah,
faster than that,
yeah,
so.
no, you're right.
I think plan the meeting and see what happens.
So skip next week and then go on to the 30th as,
And the agenda, changes on tonight's agenda were so that we could skip next week.
yes,
That was
Yeah.
my thought, is
Yeah.
trying to get everything into this week, because you don't know, we might have to skip the 30th as well, and we just don't know. In the same way for the town staff,
Yeah.
as you guys said, it's bound to get worse.
Can we at least come up with our best shot backup plan? I mean, we start working on that, so if the 30th does come around and we can't have it, we have some idea
I
of what we're
believe
gonna
that
do.
the amount of pressure that towns are putting on state government right now to answer this question of can we have virtual meetings is going to result in something in the next,
Yeah.
like, it is, I've got
Well, there's enough
50
towns
emails in my
already
inbox
doing
right
this. so
now.
it must-
complaining about this.
so they're gonna come up with something.
I hope so.
Well, they have to, I mean, they have to.
No, I think they will. Look how much has happened since Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, over a weekend, you wouldn't think much would happen. So,
I also want to just put this out there as a possibility. There's nothing that I am aware of that legally holds you to have your town meeting on May 11th and 12th. There is no statute that says that the Tremont town meeting needs to be on these days. Just 150 years of tradition. And it would be a big change to postpone it, but you could, I believe. And
Is there anything that says it has to be in this room?
no,
I mean, because
I mean, it was in the community building for all those years,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like, this building, the room has only existed since 2006. So,
I can tell you, I'd rather be outside than in a room that's circulating probably air
Yeah.
constantly.
so
I think,
postponing it is an option, I believe. I would want to double check with legal counsel before we did so, but I believe that would be an option. And I would also just say, I have been checking the town accounts every day to make sure this, as the stock market swings wildly, our accounts are not in stocks. We have $5 million sitting in the town's bank accounts right now. We're not going to run out of money anytime soon.
no, and I think it's too far in advance to even talk about that, in my opinion. I mean, we can think about it and think to ourselves some ideas and stuff, but I just think that town meeting, as far as right now, it could be a lot of different situations could be here then. So maybe it'll be fine. Maybe we'll have to push back a ways. I mean, there's.
We might be voting on the items.
Yeah, I mean, it really, yeah, Mark.
If town meeting were delayed or rescheduled, it would have to be held before the beginning of the fiscal year, correct? Otherwise,
Actually, one of the parts of the governor's declaration of emergency allows towns who are on, well, it applies to all towns, as I understand it. Again, I want to double check with legal counsel. A lot of towns have their town meetings right now in March, and that's because they're on the calendar year, and they have articles past the previous year's meeting to carry them through the first 3 months of the year until town meeting. The governor's declaration of emergency allowed them to continue spending without town meeting approval. And I believe that would apply to us. So if you couldn't have the town meeting before June 30th, our only limitation would be how much money's in the bank. We're out of money in the bank, well, then you're in trouble. But then I think we probably all have bigger problems. So.
And I have one more. The planning board had a meeting scheduled for the 24th, which I'm sure is going to be canceled at this point, which is wise. But the agenda did include something that was going to go on the warrant for the town meeting. How is that going to get handled? Or do we have no idea at this point?
So this is a land use ordinance that we've been working with for a number of changes. Some that you've requested, like changing the CEO authority to issue home occupation permits. Many that the Department of Environmental Protection has requested. And I had double checked our ordinances this afternoon. It is highly advisable to get the planning board's recommendation on any land use ordinance change, but it is not required by any law I can find. And so in all other circumstances, I think you would want the planning board's recommendation, but you don't have to have it. You do, as part of the process of amending the land use ordinance, have to have a public hearing before the planning board, which would have been scheduled in April. If that meeting didn't happen, now you're getting into hot water.
Yeah, that's right, public hearings.
But, and the same goes for all your ordinances as well for the public hearings. But again, maybe a problem for another day. But if next week's planning board meeting didn't happen, we could still amend the land use ordinance so that you were comfortable with the language that's in there.
Yeah, I think we should cancel all meetings until the 30th, like you had originally stated, and just let's talk about it again on the 30th and see where we are. 2 weeks away and see how things are. What do you guys think?
Sounds good to me.
Yep,
Yeah.
business as usual now.
So the motion that's in your addendum, the manager's memo addendum, you wanted to make that motion, but delete this part in the middle that says to pay all personnel during closure without deduction from leave banks. I think the rest of that motion still would apply.
What about meeting? Should we,
And then I would add to it and to cancel all committee and board and committee meetings between March 16th and March 30th.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to close the town office to the public from Monday, March 16th, 2020 through Monday, March 30th, 2020. And to cancel all board and committee meetings and to authorize the town manager to make further closures at his discretion.
I'm gonna put a time frame on closing the board meetings too.
Oh, to March 30th,
Same day.
also, same date, sorry. Yeah.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to authorize the town manager to close the town office to the public from Monday, March 16th, 2020 through Monday, March 30th, 2020. And to cancel all board and committee meetings during the same period, and to authorize the town manager to make further closures at his discretion. Any discussion,
I have one question.
Mark, and then.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Same question.
No,
Okay,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure that if you decide that different closures need to be made, that you and Jamie get together and, I mean, I don't want to find out through the grapevine that
Yeah.
everything we just decided has been,
Yeah.
tossed up in the air.
I promise, we'll do it through Jamie.
Yeah.
I think that,
Yeah.
I'll leave it.
Communication, I guess, is my thing.
Yeah, and I'll try to let everybody know if there's any, or Chris can make sure that someone contacts everybody if there's any drastic changes, if anything is yes.
That was basically the question I had. Should you add to your motion the fact that Chris is to get with you before making that decision?
I don't feel the need for that.
Okay, I'm just throwing it out.
I know I was chair for a while too, and there was plenty of communication on anything like that.
Yeah.
Without being asked.
No, I think we've communicated on quite a bit of this already,
Yeah,
so.
an example is if, God forbid, if Jamie got sick,
Mhm.
I would not be able to communicate with Jamie.
Somebody.
I would then call Mike,
Right.
who's the vice chair.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
Good question.
Okay, more discussion. All in favor? All right,
Now you have some silly items, but just clear them out.
portable toilet bid.
Business as usual.
Business as usual.
I make a motion to award the fiscal year 21 portable toilet contract to MDI Porta Potty at the cost of $25 per week and $75 per extra pump.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to award the FY 21 portable toilet contract to MDI Porta Potty at a cost of $25 a week per toilet and $75 per extra pump. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, coastal community grant. Chris, could you just give us a rundown, because I know
Yeah.
this was
Yeah, it's a
important
super
to me
quick
as well.
thing to get on here, and I wish I had more information for you. I was approached by a group out of Portland called FB Environmental Associates. They're doing a grant application on behalf of every coastal town in Maine, and they're all eligible to sign on to it. To develop model ordinances related to resiliency planning. What do I have in here? To prepare resiliency planning of coastal towns to sea level rise, storm surge, and flooding by developing model ordinances. So any ordinance that was developed would, of course, be subject to your approval and town meeting's approval. It's not, like signing up for all of that. Really, you're just agreeing if you do want into this to a staff person will attend a few workshops to give them our input in these model ordinances.
These are state grants or federal?
These are state rates.
It's a good idea.
I don't-
actually saw that, I was gonna talk to you about it.
I don't know if it's that important at the time being, but when would this be? I mean, where it's obviously it's on our plate now because there's a.
The deadline to apply is March 31st.
Okay,
We should just postpone it. I mean,
The application,
No,
well, the group that's preparing the grant on our behalf would need to know before March 30th.
if we're not allowing people in the office, we probably don't want to send people to workshops.
They'll probably do it digitally.
Just to be clear on the timeline of the grant application is due by March 31st. If the grant is awarded, then it'll occur over the course of FY 21. So the workshops would be like next
down the
fall,
road.
next
Yeah,
winter,
okay,
next
yeah.
spring.
Okay, not now.
No, so the workshops are not in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
but Just
Just
need
the
to draw more
application.
the application for the grant.
Okay, that makes more sense.
I make a motion to authorize the town manager to apply for a coastal community grant through FB Environmental Associates to improve resiliency of coastal towns to sea level rise, storm surge, and flooding by developing model ordinances.
Second.
been moved and seconded to authorize the town manager to apply for a coastal community grant through FB Environmental Associates to improve resiliency of coastal towns to sea level rise, storm surge, and flooding by developing model ordinances. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? All right, wharf and facilities ordinances.
So your last meeting, you asked me to put those fees back in the ordinance, and you've got 2 papers in front of you. You've got one that looks like this. This is just a 1-pager that it shows all the fees, so you don't have to flip through all the pages of the ordinance to find them. It shows the current fee and then the proposed new fee. And then this actually has the ordinance, the fees in the ordinance.
And these would be set by town meeting as they are now.
And the Harbor Committee loves this, or
I
loves the fees.
cannot speak on behalf of the Harbor Committee. These are a little different from the ones that I showed them at their meeting on February 27th. So I don't want to assume that they're okay with my tweaks.
Okay.
But they were okay with the previous ones, which were similar.
They understood the need for the increase so that it's self-sustaining, the town dock. But were they for the selectmen setting
In their motion, they originally recommended that you have the ordinance read as set by selectmen and not put the fees in there.
okay, that's what they had recommended.
That was their recommendation.
Yep.
And
I
so
thought so. I just want to be sure.
I'll be
that
honest,
we were-
on drafting the warrant, typically we put the recommendation of the committee. And
Mhm.
so the Harbor Committee makes no recommendation because they approve something that's different from this.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand we had some people here at the last meeting where they were concerned with changing the fees multiple times a year. And I think one time a year is, I mean, that's more than enough, that's when it should be done. I don't know if I care if it doesn't really matter if it's by town meeting or by the selectmen, as long as it's just only allowed to be done once a year, is the biggest thing, I guess. Obviously, it has to go up right now because it has to take care of itself.
Right, I mean, I almost think that we should make that call. Opposed to.
I know, it's been set up for quite some time, that it goes to town meeting, and some people seem to feel strongly that it should still go to town meeting, and honestly, I don't.
It's gonna get shot down every time, town full of fishermen. I mean, it's,
I mean, has it before? I
I
don't,
don't think so.
I don't know. Chris, you're not,
The last time the work facilities ordinance was passed was 2017.
Mhm.
And it passed.
Yep.
That was a major revision to the ordinance.
I haven't heard anyone complaining about the change in fees. I understand what it's doing, we're redoing the dock right now, currently being redone. I think people understand.
And this is clear. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be surprised when you come in, you know what you're looking at, you
Mhm.
know.
I generally try not to interject too much of my personal opinion, but I will just say, if you don't mind,
no, go ahead.
that your harbor committee made a recommendation to you to do the ordinance a certain way. And it was a unanimous recommendation from the members that you appointed to advise you on matters related to the harbor. That's not what's in front of you tonight.
Okay, so the harbor committee doesn't want the fees put in here, right? They want us to set them.
That was what they were requesting.
they want the selectmen to make the decision, vote on it, and that's it.
That is what the harbor committee's recommendation.
I think that's just with everything going on, it's one less thing we gotta worry about. If we miss our town meeting, we're still gonna get the money.
Obviously, there were people here who were present at your last meeting who just strongly disagree with the harbor committee.
The only way I would ever agree to that, in my own opinion, would be if it was stated in there that it can only be changed once a year. It cannot be changed 2-3 times a year. It has to be set once a year by the select board. And then I would think that would take care of a lot of the issues that they were worried about.
I would agree. I mean, it just in that, and for the office, it's easier for them just to have one sheet of paper that says this is what it is.
Right.
I
That's a
mean-
nightmare
I agree.
to issue permits.
I'm
today it's $20
comfortable
a foot,
voting
tomorrow
on
it's
something like
40.
this. We know it's not carrying itself. I'm comfortable voting for it to say to adjust the fee schedule without taking it to the town meeting. I mean, there's no sense for us to be in the red. What do you think, Jamie?
I think that like I said, I think the only way that I would be okay with it is to be sure. I understand their concerns. I understand some people's concerns. I've seen both sides of it and I understand both sides of it. They just don't want to see, basically, someone that has a bone to pick who might be a future select board member or something and could set the fees as regularly as they felt they should be able to. And this is just what they had spoken to me about, and they just want to be sure that it's only set once a year. And that was their concern. That's not my concern, that's their concern.
So we can
That's
make
valid.
that
I mean,
a
that's,
condition of our vote. I
Mhm.
mean,
So you could request me to redraft the ordinance back to what it was in last meeting. And then I could also insert language in there that says that no more than once within a 12-month period.
Mhm.
But I would have to massage the language a little bit.
What do you guys?
I'm happy
Yeah.
with that.
I get the preference. I mean, I understand. It's really nice to see it laid out on one page.
Yep.
I think with the selectmen doing it, it'd be a lot easier to do that, so they have to fish through every page of the ordinance to find it. But that being said, you could also just print up one at the end. So, I mean, I don't have a strong preference.
I know, and like I said, I see both sides of it too. I think that it's good to have it set by, it has been set by town meeting. As long as you can't change it more than once a year, it needs to take care of itself. I guess you're trusting your selectmen with all the other decisions in town. So this is, this is part of it, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it going back to the town meeting also, so I mean, that's, I
Yeah.
don't,
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see a big deal one way or the other. Again, I think an annual change is enough.
Annual change.
I'm assuming the harbor committee had a pretty good reason for unanimously voting to have the selectmen do it.
I think that the history has been that you have, the reason that it's running in the red right now is because you had two unexpected changes. You had the trash fees significantly increased and you lost the revenue source. And I think you want to be nimble enough to respond when things like that happen. And right now, in my opinion, you're not.
It's not really an abuse of power really to try to be in the green, I don't think.
I think it would be an abuse of power to allow it to
To
run.
lead, to run in the red another year.
We have to make the same decisions for every other part of the town, so.
I think what we heard at the last meeting too, as long as the changes weren't happening more than every 12 months or so.
Yes, yeah, that was their
That was the biggest concern, wasn't a big call.
okay, so we have to send it back to you to amend it again. All right.
Okay, so I'll make the money.
Good thing we're not paid by the hour, right?
And we want to amend it to say once a calendar year, once every 12 months, annually.
How about
annually,
just no more than once in a 12-month period?
no
I
more.
actually kind of like the to be set annually,
And
because you do already have some annual policy adoptions. And I could see you running into, you can laugh at this, running into hot water if, for example, the meeting where you did all of your annual policy adoptions, let's say it was on June 12th one year and was on June 11th the next year, just because of how the calendar works. Now you can't do that on June 11th because it's within 12 months of the June 12th one. But if you say to be set annually, then once,
Okay. Good argument.
So how would we word that
Yeah.
to revert back to?
I'll revert to the latest version.
you just say to
Prior
request the
version.
town manager to amend the work facilities ordinance by,
I make a motion to request the town manager to amend the wharf and facilities ordinance to have fee changes no more than once annually. And to be set by the select board.
Second.
I had time to write it down this time and I
Oh,
didn't,
there
yeah. It's been moved and seconded to request the town manager to make changes to the wharf use ordinance to allow the selectmen to set the fees annually so that it will not occur more than once a year.
Yeah, no more than once.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that is all of it, I think.
I agree.
Next meeting date.
Wait,
Oh, God.
come on,
Oh, I didn't think he was doing it.
Oh, we're skipping that one today.
come on.
Oh,
You don't want to hear about what I did for last week?
It's the same old thing.
It's okay.
I have a good one this week.
Oh,
I'll get there. COVID-19 planning and response. So in the midst of all of this activity last week, we had our surprise OSHA visit to see how things are going with compliance. It was the Public Works Garage and the Fire Department. I do not have the report yet. It takes them a while to generate the report, and I'm guessing it'll take even longer now. But the preliminary closing interview that I had was very, very positive. And specifically, the inspector could not, related to Public Works, could not say enough about how great she thought Justin had been doing. He had done a huge garage cleanup about 3 weeks or two weeks ago, and it was good timing. And she was just very impressed with how things looked down there. So I really wanted to put that out there.
Mine didn't go that good.
Very pleased with that. There are always recommendations. I expect to get some recommendations, but still very pleased. Budget updates. I distributed the backhoe excavator and excavator trailer bids. I've been receiving some questions from bidders. I did my Tremont Politics 101 class at the library. Had 6 attendees. That was nice. I'm working with David Walsh to get everything in order for him to refinish the gym floor. Working on the town's insurance renewal. I received back the wharf garage lease signed by the tenant for next year, so we're good there. I sent out candidate letters for those who returned BOS software papers, and so you should have gotten those tonight. I met with the engineer and Mission Mitar of Sealcoat of Maine Coast Heritage Trust regarding the Nature Like Fish passage design work that's being done there. Things are coming along. They would like to get some direction from you at some point on the design, so I expect that to be on an agenda at some point. I met with Acadia National Park staff and Maine Coast Heritage Trust regarding parking down at Lighthouse Road. They've got some early ideas, so when they do come together, they'll be back in touch with us, and again, they want to be with you to get some feedback on those ideas. I received a draft 3-year law enforcement contract from Hancock County Sheriff's Office, which is nice, and so I'll share that with you at the next meeting. I attended the planning board meeting, notified DMR regarding the AOLife management at Sealcoat Brook, working on that land use ordinance update with Jesse, and we opened the portable toilet bids. Office staff has been doing COVID-19 prep and response, including lots of cleaning. Jesse met with DEP regarding our land use ordinance, and the office staff was helpful in pulling together a lot of that paperwork in response to the OSHA visit. Public Works also has already been following up on some of the recommendations from OSHA. They were patching roads last week, and then they have been continuing garage cleanup. Our harbor master sent out mooring bills, also follow up from the OSHA visit, and he's monitoring the wharf reconstruction. And then some priorities over the next couple weeks: COVID-19 response, budget work, preparing for town meeting warrant, submitting the insurance renewal, and maybe having a League of Towns emergency meeting, probably virtual. We'll see.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay, date of the next meeting.
Make a motion to set the next meeting for March 30th, 2020.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, March 30th, 2020, 5 o'clock, at the town office. Any discussion? those in favor?
Don't run out of here. I have a thing, some signatures from you guys.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah.
You vote. Start down here.
Okay,
I haven't yet, have they?
what?
I ain't even been in the store, you've been in the store.
I ain't gonna start that.
I haven't even been in the store or McKinley's. You haven't? You all